Let's begin with the thread that I know most personally, the absent father. Not always absent in the dramatic films and telenovelas sense. Sometimes present enough for you to know what you're missing. Sometimes financially responsible, school fees paid, maintenance sent, but emotionally, relationally, just not there. My father was that kind of absent. He remarried when I was really young, and for most of my childhood, I grew up without him nearby. He wasn't a deadbeat. He provided. But providing is not the same as presence. I grew up watching my friends, my cousins, my sisters, other girls around me being loved on by their daddies, being swung around and called daddy's girl, having someone check their homework, teach them to ride a bike, walk them to school. I watched all that with a mixture of envy and sadness that I couldn't fully name as a child. I just knew something in me was aching for something I just couldn't quite describe. It was only after my stepmother passed away that my father began to reach out to me. We spent some time together, a handful of visits really. He took me to his office in Highlands once or twice. He was a CIO at the president's office in Zimbabwe, a war veteran, so quite a respectable figure. He introduced me to his colleagues with this unmistakable pride in his voice, and I remember standing there just basking in the warmth of his presence, drinking it in. There was one moment he dropped me off at my grandmother's house, and before I got out of the car, he kissed my cheek and told me that he loved me. That's a small thing, isn't it? A cheek kiss and 3 little words. But I held on to that moment like it was rare, because it was. Then he fell ill, and then he was gone. And I was left with questions I never got to ask, and a bicycle I still don't know how to ride, because there was no one there to hold the back of the seat while I found my balance. A small thing, a symbolic thing. But here is what I also need to tell you, because my story is not only about absence. My mother had 4 brothers, and those 4 brothers, along with countless other male relatives who were present in our home, became the closest thing I had to father figures. They were kind men, funny men, intelligent, wise, the kind of men whose presence filled a room without demanding it. Each of them played a different role in my life, and together they formed something that I now understand was a kind of scaffolding. They held me up in places where the structure was missing. I didn't fully understand what they were giving me at the time. You don't as a child. You just know that you feel safe around certain people. You know that certain laughter sounds like home. Their names were Uncle Friday, Uncle Lovejoy, Uncle Clancy, and Uncle Bright. They have all died. And I want to tell you something about losing men like that. Men who were not your father, but who fathered you in ways that mattered. Each loss cracked something open in me. Not the same crack as losing my father, but related to it. Each time one of them left, I lost another piece of the scaffolding. Another man who had seen me, who had been kind to me, who had been, without ever perhaps using the words, a safe space. Uncle Clancy was the last to go. He died last year, and that loss sat heaviest because with him went the last of that generation, the last living connection to that particular kind of love. I felt it not just as grief for him alone, but as the closing of something, a chapter, a shelter, a presence that had no replacement. I say this because I think we rarely name this particular grief. We don't have a word for mourning the men who were not your father, but who kept you from feeling entirely fatherless. But that grief is real. And if you lost people like this, uncles, older brothers, grandfathers, mentors, family friends, your grief counts. It is not lesser because the relationship didn't carry an official title. Sometimes the people who save us are not the ones who were supposed to. They just did it anyway, and that is its own kind of sacred. If this is your story, or something like it, I want you to know that what you grew up with was not just physical absence. It was the absence of a template. When a father is not there, daughters often grow up developing what I call survival strategies. We become hyper independent because we learned early on that no one's coming, so we better figure it out ourselves. We develop a deep, sometimes hidden fear of abandonment because the very first men who were supposed to stay just didn't. And we carry a longing to be chosen, to be picked, to be seen as worth staying for, a longing we often carry straight into our adult relationships without even realizing it. The child adopts, the woman inherits. And for many of us, that inheritance includes the strong black woman armor, the superhero cape that nobody asks us to put on, but that everyone in our lives is very relieved we're wearing. We'll come back to that armor because we need to talk about putting it down.